Welcome to the next module. In this module, we're going to talk about the Framer CMS, otherwise known as the Content Management System. Now, we might use a CMS to create things like a blog, job listings, a content library, essentially any content on your site that requires multiple entries within the same group. And we'll look at how we can do all of this natively inside Framer throughout this module. So the first thing we're going to do is discover how we can create a new CMS collection. So from the top of our editor here, we're just going to click on this icon, which is the Framer CMS, and we're going to create a new collection. So if we're migrating from another platform, we might already have some of our content that we just want to import, and so we're ready to go. But for now, let's just add a blog, which is going to have some dummy content, or if we want to start from scratch, we can just press the plus at the top. But for now, let's add some dummy content. So here we are inside the CMS dashboard. Now, there's a few different things we need to kind of understand here. Number one is collections. Now, how I like to describe the CMS is like a bunch of different newspaper. Each collection would be a different newspaper. So your collection has all of your content. And then inside your collection, you have items. As you can see, we've got 5 items here, which are essentially the individual blog posts for this collection, which is a blog. Now, if we were going to put this in newspaper term, these would be our articles, and the collection would be the newspaper, the thing that kind of wraps all the pages together and makes it what it is. Now, there's a few other things that we need to understand. So if I click into one of my items here, you'll see that we've got all of our content, and we kind of have these in these different fields. Now, fields is essentially the layout we want, or the content layout we want within all of our items. So if we click on Edit Fields at the top of our page, you'll notice we can actually decide what content we actually want to include in each one of our items. Now, it's important to note that this structure will be the same for all of our CMS items. Now, you must have a title and you must have a slug. But let's say we didn't want to include an image. We don't necessarily have to include an image. But if we want the ability to, we need the spot for that image. So let's go ahead here and add a couple more options. I notice that my blog probably needs an author. So let's add a field to put the author name. And let's also add another field to put the author profile picture. And we'll make that as an image field. So now, let's say if I wanted to add a new item to my blog, I would just click on New Item, and then we could label it however we want. So I could call this My Amazing Tutorial on the CMS, right? So the slug is kind of like the unique link that someone can use to actually visit that page. I can set up the date, so let's just do my birthday. Let's set an image here. Perfect. Let's make the author me. And let's find someone to be me. I would say that looks like me, wouldn't you? And then we can add our content. So let's just add, hello world, this is my amazing blog post. Pretty simple for now. Okay, so now that we understand how collections and collection items work, in the next lesson we'll actually look at connecting that to our canvas. Okay, so now that we understand a little bit more around the CMS and how we can add our content to the Framer CMS, let's look at how we can actually display that on our website. Now, we'll do this over 2 lessons. We'll do this over showing how to add a collection list and then having a detail page, which is the actual page for our content itself. So you'll see that by default, Framer will automatically create those pages for us. Here we have a page which kind of shows the preview of all our articles in one place, and this is our collection list. And then we have our detail page, which is a specific page for all of that content, just like so. Now, we can either keep this page like it is, when someone goes to /blog, the name of our collection, they'll just get taken to this page here. But we can also add a collection list to anywhere on our website. So let's go back to my homepage here. And I've already started designing this a little bit. And I want to add my collection list within here. So I'm going to go to the Insert menu, and under the CMS here, we're going to grab the collection list component, and I'm going to drag that into my frame. Now let me just tweak the settings here. So let's just set the height of this to be auto so we can see what's going on. And you can see it automatically pulls my collections and displays them on the canvas. Now the styling isn't great, so we can tweak that. But if we actually look at this component here, or this frame, you'll notice it's set up a little bit differently. Instead of having an element for each one of these that I could customize, it's actually just one element or one frame here with different styling in it that's actually inheriting multiple times for each one of my items. So for example, if I take this image and change the style of it, you'll notice it'll change for the rest of them too. So this means we design it once and then it will just duplicate every single time there's an item on our page. So let's, for example, just delete all this and let's start with a blank canvas. Now we want to make sure that that's all being linked within our stack frame here. So I've already got something set up, so let's just copy this. And let's go back to our stack inside our collection list, and let's paste that. Now you'll notice it shows 10 times because I've got 10 different articles, or 6 times, but the content isn't linked. Now what we can do is actually link the content from my CMS to show visually on the canvas. So let's take the title, for example. Now what I can do is select the text here, and you'll start to see these little pluses appear. Now you might remember these from when we were doing variables or variants from the components, but this can also be the case or if we want to link content to the CMS. So if I click on the plus, you'll notice I can set the variable to be a field from my CMS. So if I set it to the title, it's going to show the title. If I set the paragraph here to be a preview of the content, I could do that like so. That's for now, just remove that. And let's keep it really simple. Let's set the image as well. So we'll set it to be the image. And you'll notice it will start to populate with all the content from my CMS. Now we also set a profile picture. So let's go ahead and set that one as well. So we'll set it as the author profile picture. And we'll set the name as well to be the author name. Now you'll notice in some instances we don't actually have any information to show there. Now we'll cover this a little later on in a future video, but if we don't want to show them, we don't actually need to. But as you can see, we can actually control the styling of this collection list just like that. Now if I wanted to put this in, say, a grid, I could absolutely do that. I just have to select the collection list and change the layout to be grid. Obviously it's a little broken, so I would need to fix that. But you can see pretty quickly I could style something that looks pretty good. So maybe if we go in here and we change the width of these things, so we'll change the width of this to be 100%. Beautiful. That already looks a million times better. So let's get rid of this background color on my stack. And the other thing to notice too is that on the stack itself, I can set the link. So if I've got the link to be, and this will do it automatically, but if you just want to set it so it will automatically go to the detail page, you just need to make sure you've got the 2 dots with slug at the end, just like this. So then essentially it's reading the slug field from the CMS and putting it there in the code. Alright, so now that we've shown how you can actually create a collection list, let's look at collection pages. So inside here we've got a collection page. Now this is where we can actually show more of the content from an item inside our CMS and only for that item. So for example, we've got a blog post set up here. We've got some default styling, so we'll customize that in a minute. But you can notice if I go to the top here, I could actually toggle between all my different items to get a preview of how they look. Now, one of the most important things here to understand about the CMS detail pages is if I make a styling tweak to one of these pages, it'll change for all other CMS pages within that collection. So it almost works like components where it's like a global instance. So let's say, for example, if I change this image here and let's make it a little bit shorter, you'll notice that if I go to another page, it's also going to have that exact same styling. So it's like a big template, and all that's different is the actual content that we're linking to from the CMS. So let's just start from a blank canvas. So I'm just going to delete all this content here. And luckily for you, I've actually already created a template that I can just copy and paste over. So I'm just going to grab all these elements. I'm just going to paste them onto my page. Beautiful. Where are we? Cool. Here. Okay, fantastic. And let's just fix the styling of this. Let's reduce the padding. Okay, so here I have a template for my blog detail page, but now I actually need to sync up the content. So just like in the collection list, I just need to select an element on my canvas, and anything with a little plus here means I can tie it to some sort of variable inside my CMS item. So we'll go set, and we'll set that to be the image. Let's set this one to be the title. Let's set this to be the author. And we've got to put the author image in there as well. Now again, you'll notice there's no content here, so it's not really showing much. We'll cover that in the next lesson. But for now, let's just finish connecting all of this. Let's set our content. Okay, great. This is looking pretty good. Let's fix the styling of this. Cool. So if I go to another page, you'll notice everything kind of inherits that styling, but it's the content that changes. And that's the big thing that you need to know. So you can style this like any other page, but again, if you want to link things, you just need to find the item with a plus and then link it to a field in the CMS. And then any style changes you make is global to the rest of that collection. So I forgot to mention too, so if you want a really quick way to actually add fields from your CMS to the canvas, you can just click on the insert menu, go down to content fields and just drag one of those things onto the canvas. And you'll see it will automatically just pull some styling and get you going. Now, if you want to make it easy for someone to search your entire collection list, Framer makes this dead ass easy to do. Normally doing search on a website is really quite complex and takes a lot of time and bandwidth, but literally you can do this in 10 seconds. Look, you go to the insert menu, you search for search bar, right, and you drag that onto your canvas. And then in that component, you've essentially, well, actually you've already done it, right? If you press on preview, and if you click on search, you now can search the rest of your website. Now you have to publish this in order for it to work. But in this case, I just want this search bar to actually go through and search this CMS collection. So if I press on the scope here, I could set it to just look at the blog and pages according to that blog. So I wouldn't search the whole website, it would just search that CMS collection. Now I can style this as I need to. I can even change the modal design and make that a little bit different if I want. You've got a bunch of different styling options here, but I just want to show you this because it's something that your blog should absolutely have, especially if you've got lots of different entries, and it's super quick and super easy to do, and it's free. I think Framer do have some limitations once you've got like a larger site, but in terms of just some simple search, it's pretty easy to do and very quick to implement, so highly recommend you do it. Now, the Framer CMS can actually get really powerful when you unlock some of the advanced capabilities of it. Now, one of those capabilities is actually called conditions. So we've spoken about a little bit that if there is no content within a field of your CMS, within an item, for example here, I actually don't have a author name or author profile picture, you notice it's not actually showing anything here. Now, we could use conditions to actually set different states of that, so whether it should show or hide or show something else. So for example here, you'll notice if I select the profile picture, I've actually got the ability to sync a condition for a variable of the visibility. So if I hid the visibility normally, it would, not show, which is what we want in this instance. But the problem is that on my pages that I actually do have a profile picture for, it wouldn't show. So we want the visibility to be set, but we only want it to show when the profile picture is set within the CMS. So what I could do is set up a rule. So I could go, I could set the variable to be if the author profile picture is set, then it would be visible. So that means if it isn't set, it's automatically going to become invisible. So if I go to a page that does have the author profile picture, you'll notice it shows and the visibility is set. But if I go to one without a profile picture, it shows nothing. Now, we could take this a step further as well. So let's say if we took the title of our CMS page here, which is my amazing tutorial on the CMS, and let's set a variable here. So we'll add a variable to the visibility, and we can set it to say if the author profile picture or the content is set, then it shows. But we can also make it isn't set. So we can actually tie it to other elements within our CMS as well. We can also do some more tricky stuff. So let's say if we took this title here, we can make it have different rules if it is set, if it isn't set, but whether it equals a certain thing as well. So let's say if it includes the word tutorial, it might do something very specific. So let's say it contains, right, and then we'll have the value of tutorial, and if it's written just like that, then it will show this heading. But if it doesn't contain tutorial, it's not going to show a heading. So this can get really powerful really quickly. We actually use this on our own website to actually color code different things as well. So you could actually do it in a way where if I wanted this field background to be set to a certain thing, we could make it that if the title, contains the word education or tutorial, right, then it shows it to be a purple. But when it doesn't, it shows it to be a black. So in this instance, it shows the word tutorial in the title, so we'll change this to purple. But if I go to something like this one, you notice it doesn't have that in the title, so it shows the black. So yeah, this can get quite advanced and quite explorative very, very quickly. So I highly recommend you just jump in and figure out what you want to do. But hopefully this gives you a bit more insight in terms of what it can actually unlock for you. Because once you actually unlock the understanding of the capabilities of the CMS, it feels like a new world and it feels like there's a lot more you can actually do. Okay, so if you are migrating over from another platform like Webflow or WordPress, I just wanted to give you this quick extra lesson to show you how you can actually import all your existing content. So when I actually create a new collection inside my CMS here, I've got the option to import. Now, all you need to do is export your original CMS as a CSV file, which is essentially just like this spreadsheet where everything's kind of like categorized. Now, there's a guide here and you can follow that, but it's pretty simple to do. All you need to do is upload the file. The one thing to make sure is that your field names are exactly, and I mean exactly the same, to what's in your CSV. So if you have a field called title from your old collection list and that's showed in your CSV file called title, it needs to be written called title with a capital T. If it's not, it's just not going to sync across. It's a common mistake that happens, and I just want to make it aware if you are importing from another platform, just because I see this mistake way too often. So yeah, just if you're importing, make sure you use the CSV and make sure that the collection fields are labeled the same. Okay, so let's look at how we can actually filter our collection list to show some items. And we'll do this in two steps. We'll look at the default filtering that Framer has, and then we'll actually look at how we can do dynamic filtering, so we can actually have more options in terms of how we control our collection list. So let's start really simply. Let's select that collection list on our canvas. And you'll notice we've got a few different sections here within our properties panel. Obviously, we can select the collection that we've got here. Now we can also sort and add a filter. So sorting allows us to set the order. So default just goes from newest to oldest, or we could reverse that order too. Now filters lets us actually set a filter to only show things matched on a certain value. So let's say, for example, we go to our CMS here, and let's edit the fields, and let's add a new field in here called option. And let's just call this tag, and this is where we could use different tags. So let's say we want a blog and we want to show different tags based on whether this is a company announcement, a bit of news, a bit of advice, maybe it's a tutorial. There's lots of different tags we could apply. So let's just create a few dummy ones here. So we've got news, we've got company, and tutorial. Okay, great. So now if I went through each one of these, let's set that one to be news, this one to be company, this one to be tutorial, this one to be company, this one to be tutorial, and let's keep that one as news. So now if I went back to my collection list here, and if we added a filter, we could make it that if the tag equals news, then it only shows things called news. We could do the same for if it equals company, it only shows the collections that have the tag company, or we could do the same with tutorial, and so on. Now this is good, but it doesn't actually let us filter between these sort of things very quickly. So there's something we can do to actually make this even better. Now this is a tool called Superfields, which we've actually developed, which actually lets you kind of supercharge your Framer CMS. Just because the Framer CMS is still fairly early and there's a lot of things that the community and designers want to do, but they don't have the access to. So we've developed a bunch of different plugins to actually let you do that. And one of them is dynamic filtering. So you could actually have a lot more control over that filtering. So let's just go here and copy these components and we'll just paste them onto our canvas. Now what I'm going to do is grab this collection list and we're going to drag this off of our canvas. And this kind of works similar to a slideshow or a ticker effect, where it's this sort of component here that we're going to tie to some content. So we'll just tie it to our collection list, just like so. And we're going to draw in a new frame here for an empty state, because we're doing it as a dynamic search. So it means someone can kind of pick and choose which sort of filters they want to choose. And then if there's no results found, then we just have no results found. So, all right, that's all connected. That looks pretty good. We've got the filtering turned on. Okay, let's go back to Superfields. Let's copy the filtering component. Let's paste that into our canvas and let's put that here. And now under here, what we're going to do is we're going to just set it up so everything matches. So we're going to set the field name to be the exact same as what's in my CMS. So it's going to be tag. And we're going to make the option to be a dropdown. That looks pretty good. And now we want to show all of our options here. So let's just add a new one. So we had news, we had company, and we also had tutorial. Let me just double check that that's right. News, company, tutorial. Perfect. Okay. And we could also have a button here to reset those filters. Cool. Okay, so let's just try this out. And obviously it doesn't look very good just yet. But let's say if we filtered news, you'll notice it will only show the items with news. Or we could set it to company or tutorial and so on. Now, obviously it's not showing all the content for some very weird reason, but it does work, trust me. But this is a really cool and easy way to actually create quick filters really easily inside of Framer.